The Galactic Empire had expanded for thousands of years. It didn't negotiate. It absorbed. System after system was brought under control through a predictable sequence: first contact, demand for submission, and, if necessary, overwhelming force. There hadn't been a real war in over a century. Most species submitted after witnessing a single display of power. Those who resisted were either too fractured or too feeble to last long. Then came Earth. It was discovered during a routine survey, one of many planets logged during expansion into the outer spiral. Early scans flagged a few oddities: oxygen-rich atmosphere, rotating seasons, liquid water, a dense population, and unmistakable signs of advanced technology. But something about the data was off. Too many apex predators. Instability in weather patterns. Elevated background radiation. A footnote marked the planet, uncontacted. Pre-jump civilization. Possibly hostile. Low risk. First contact was assigned to a diplomatic envoy, escorted by a modest military detachment. They never came back. No distress call. No beacons. No automated recall signal. Only one thing returned: a short video clip. A human official, weathered, calm, staring directly into the lens. He stated, plainly, Earth will not answer to foreign rule. No threats. No overture of peace. Just a message, and silence. The coordinates were blocked. All further communication was severed. The Council wasn't alarmed. Communication failures were common during first contacts. Some assumed Earth had sabotaged the signal. Others theorized a translation glitch. A second team was briefly discussed, until someone proposed military action. The logic was ancient and reliable: if one world refused, others might follow. That risk could not be allowed to spread. The vote for planetary enforcement was swift. 70 out of 90 council members approved, many before the session had even formally opened. Only a handful questioned the proposal. One of them was General Xanthal. He wasn't a politician. He rarely spoke. He wasn't even from the dominant species. He had earned his stripes the old way, through border skirmishes, civil suppression campaigns, and frontline attrition. 7 times wounded. 3 fleets lost under his command. Each time he returned. As the vote neared its close, he stood. "You believe this is a standard mission," he said. "You're wrong." Some paused. Others didn't. Xanthal kept speaking. "I visited Earth 30 cycles ago. Quiet mission. No contact. Environmental sampling only. 4 of us went in. 1 came back. He wasn't trying to scare them. His tone was flat, clinical, even. We landed in a forest. It looked peaceful. It wasn't. The plants moved in unnatural ways. Soil bacteria corroded our suits. One of my team died within 6 hours, not from weapons. From a bite. A creature no larger than a hand. He died screaming. He waited a moment. Then went on. We attempted extraction. A storm grounded us. We walked for miles. The cold cut through our armor like needles. We encountered humans. They weren't hiding. They weren't afraid. They were chopping wood. Jogging. Laughing. Not soldiers. Just people. And it was normal for them." Another pause. The chamber had fallen silent. "You call them primitive. They live in chaos every day. We didn't survive 2 days without assistance. They've survived for generations." He looked around. "You think numbers will win. You think this will be quick. It won't. Not because they have better weapons. Because they don't break like others do." Then he sat. No one clapped. No one objected. But the confidence in the room dimmed. Still, the motion passed. That was the day some began to suspect Earth might be different. Not because of its weapons, but because a soldier who had been there had returned and said, "Don't." We landed during winter, though we didn't understand what that meant until we opened the hatch. Sensors said it was survivable. Just below freezing. But the data lagged behind reality. The cold cut through our suits in minutes. It wasn't just temperature. It was wind velocity, air pressure, suspended particles. It felt like the atmosphere was trying to flay us alive. Our orders were simple: deploy drones, scan, collect samples, assess colonization potential. Stealth protocol. No contact. I was second in command. Security detail. I'd handled lethal environments, acid planets, fungal biospheres, high-gravity quakescapes. But this was different. Every movement felt like climbing stairs underwater. The gravity was subtly wrong. The trees were skeletal, coated in white crystals, snow, they called it. From orbit it looked beautiful. On the ground, it was layers of frozen water thawing and refreezing, forming deadly ice sheens. The first injury came fast. Joro slipped. Both legs snapped. We stabilized him, but the cold moved quicker than our med kits. His skin turned deep violet within 30 minutes. Then came the sound. A howl. Not mechanical. Not artificial. Something organic, long, predatory. The translator flagged it as non-sentient. That didn't help. No backup. No patrols. Our command vessel remained in orbit, unable to breach the ion belt's interference. Then we saw the tracks. Padded. Clawed. At first, we assumed a scavenger. We readied weapons. But what emerged from the forest wasn't what we expected. It was massive. Covered in fur. Jaws like a trap. It studied us. It moved with intelligence. It dodged our fire, used trees as cover. It wasn't hunting. It was defending territory. Kerm was the first fatality. The creature crushed his skull and left the body. Not for food. For warning. We pulled back. Hauled Joro on a sled we built from broken panels. Night fell. Temperatures plummeted. Heat coils cracked. By morning, Joro was dead. No wounds. Just silence. We tried to lift off. The storm held us down. We retreated to a cave. That's when I saw him. A human. At first I thought it was hallucination. But he moved with confidence. No armor. No suit. Just thick clothes, bare hands, exposed face. He was chopping wood. Calm. Focused. He saw us. Didn't run. Didn't react. Just nodded. I've seen elite commandos stare death in the eye. That man's indifference, that casual, effortless unconcern, it was worse. It told us everything. We were nothing. We remained hidden, waiting for extraction. Days passed. One of us developed an infection from the water. It spread rapidly. Our antibiotics were ignored by the bacteria. Earth's microbes evolved resistance faster than we could synthesize. When the evac ship finally broke through the atmosphere, it had to burn out half its core systems. I lost 2 limbs. The frostbite went deep. When I filed my report, it was marked inconclusive. The council reviewed it. Dismissed it. No strategic minerals. Too high risk. Not worth the cost. The Empire forgot Earth. I didn't. What haunted me wasn't the cold. Not the pain. Not even the death. It was the human. Not a warrior. Not a killer. Just a man. Surviving. Enduring. He looked at us like we were nothing. Not dangerous. Not alien. Just irrelevant. We were trespassers. He was home. The council dismissed the logs. One failed recon didn't warrant policy change. Earth remained flagged as pre-hyperdrive. Low-grade threat. No planetary defense grid. Primitive satellites. Nuclear stockpiles considered irrelevant. The next vote passed with no dissent. Task Force Omega-19 was assembled. 5 capital carriers. 12 destroyers. 7 troop transports. Automated drone fleets. Standard planetary suppression formation. No major resistance was expected. Take down power grids. Neutralize military resistance. Install governance. Civilian casualties? Acceptable if resistance continued. The fleet entered Earth orbit. No engagement. Signals were intercepted, terrestrial broadcasts, encrypted local chatter, regional alarms. Earth knew. But the response wasn't panic. There was no global surrender. No diplomatic delegation sent to beg for peace. Instead, each region responded independently. Local militaries mobilized. Jets launched. Ground-to-air batteries activated. Tracking systems came online. They didn't wait for confirmation. They assumed the worst, and they were right. The Empire struck first. Drone swarms hit known defense installations. Missile silos destroyed. Airfields leveled. Communications wiped out. But Earth kept fighting. Shortwave radios replaced satellite feeds. Visual signals replaced encrypted comms. Messengers on motorcycles crossed enemy lines. They adapted. In real time. And fast. Losses were brutal. But coordination never stopped. Troops deployed into key zones. What followed wasn't war. Not in any way the Empire understood it. Cities didn't collapse. They transformed. Into traps. Narrow streets blocked armored convoys. Civilians feigned surrender, then ambushed patrols. Every building became a bunker. Every rooftop, a firing point. Empire soldiers brought energy weapons. Humans used kinetic rounds. Explosives. Even hand-forged traps. Supply lines were attacked every night. Drones went silent in electromagnetic dead zones. Command couldn't explain it. How were humans jamming without satellites? They weren't. They were destroying drones manually. With crude tools. Directed strikes. Repurposed farm equipment. In one region, an entire battalion vanished within 48 hours. Recon footage showed them freezing to death. No enemy contact. No firefight. Just exposure. Analysis later revealed they had marched into uninhabited highlands. No shelter. Locals had evacuated weeks before and let the weather kill. In another area, the Empire raised its banner after taking a city. By sunset, every water source was poisoned. The infrastructure had been left intact, on purpose. Soldiers suffered chemical burns. Internal bleeding. Field hospitals were booby-trapped. Rescue units lured into false safe zones. Ambushes came in waves. Human resistance wore no uniforms. They ignored rules of engagement. They blended. Struck. Vanished. Empire commanders begged for reinforcements. High Command refused. They insisted Earth was not a war zone. They didn't even have a word for quagmire. They expected results. Instead, they got body counts. Entire squads wiped out overnight. Veterans reported something else, something worse. Human captives. Calm under torture. Silent under pain. Some gave false intel and laughed when discovered. Psych profiles flagged them, non-compliant beyond predictive thresholds. One officer wrote in his report, "They don't fear death. Not like we do. It's not defiance. It's calculation." Then came the unthinkable. Local militias, globally unconnected, began coordinating. No central leadership. No unified government. Yet somehow, strategies aligned. Tactics in Asia mirrored jungle ambushes in South America. Explosive traps in Europe matched those in African resistance cells. The coordination wasn't digital. It was learned. Copied. Improved. They studied us. Every mistake. Every formation. Every weapon. And they adapted. Faster than our AI could process. What was meant to be a 3-week operation became a 6-month campaign. By month 5, 40% of Empire ground forces lost. By month 6, 2 capital ships destroyed. Not from orbital fire. From sabotage. From below. Human engineers scaled refueling towers. Overloaded reactors. Manually. Morale collapsed. Not from combat. But from exhaustion. No rest. No certainty. No front lines. Just resistance. Everywhere. A planet that refused to be conquered. A species that didn't wait for orders. They just fought. Eventually, command ordered a retreat. The fleet withdrew. Officially, the mission was labeled tactically unsustainable. Unofficially, it was called a mistake. Weeks after the retreat, the Council demanded answers. Closed sessions were held. Commanders summoned. Failures dissected in cold, bureaucratic terms. Troop losses. Hardware destroyed. Psychological impact indexes. Nothing explained how a pre-jump, unaligned planet had forced retreat. Blame flew. Logistics. Fleet command. Planetary analysis. Some demanded a second assault. Others wanted Earth quarantined. They summoned General Xanthal again. Not as a witness. As a consultant. He had warned them once. Now, they demanded clarity. He gave them something else. He placed a data drive on the table. Not from Empire archives. It was a compilation of intercepted human communications during the invasion. Not military. Civilian. Social platforms. News streams. Public videos. Then he played them. One by one. They didn't sound like cries for help. They were instructions. How to disable a drone with magnets. How to turn engine parts into explosives. How to signal allies using household tools. Farmers. Mechanics. Teachers. Children. No orders. No command. Just instinct. One clip showed a man patching up a wounded stranger in a burning village. Another showed a teenager directing traffic around a smoking crater. Xanthal paused the footage. They weren't trained, he said. But they acted. No hesitation. No permission. He continued. Earth's greatest weapon isn't its technology. It's initiative. They don't freeze under pressure. They accelerate. Loss doesn't break them, it mobilizes them. Every setback becomes intel. Every failure becomes a lesson. They learn faster than we can kill them. Then he handed over a translated journal. A fallen human fighter. It wasn't a soldier's log. It was a diary. Burying friends. Watching homes burn. Fearing death. But continuing anyway. One line stood out. We were never meant to win. We just refused to stop. Xanthal looked each council member in the eye. Earth doesn't fight wars like we do. They don't aim for victory. They exist in resistance. They don't have to win. They just have to keep going. And they will. He recounted prisoner interviews. Each one gave different names, cities, reasons. But when asked the same question, what will you do if we return? The answer never changed. We'll be ready. Some dismissed it as bravado. Others saw the truth. A species with no fleet. No hyperdrive. No centralized command. And yet, they won. The entire planet defied the Empire, not by authority, but by attitude. Xanthal highlighted a disturbing trend. Resistance cells were forming on fringe worlds. Some had never encountered a human. But they'd heard of Earth. The name hadn't spread as a warning. It had become a signal. A myth. A story of a species willing to fight until its final breath. A species that refused. Xanthal proposed no retaliation. No follow-up invasion. Instead, he offered redirection. Treat Earth like a dead zone. Not because it was uninhabitable, but because it cost too much to engage. Quietly classify the system under administrative risk protocols. Seal the records. Strike the name from briefings. Let the incident fade. Erase the failure. Pretend the mission never happened. The council didn't argue. Not because they agreed, but because there was no better option. As the meeting closed, one delegate turned to Xanthal. What do you call them now, after everything? He didn't say primitive. Didn't say aggressive. He said one word. Unpredictable. And added. In war, there's no worse enemy. Years passed. Earth was never discussed in open session again. No patrols entered its system. Charts quietly marked the sector unstable. Hazardous for navigation, the records claimed. Officially, this was due to stellar anomalies. Unofficially, it was to keep ships far from a planet the Empire didn't understand, and couldn't defeat. The entire operation was buried. Records locked under special military classification. No ceremony. No formal recognition of defeat. Just silence. But the whispers spread. Not through channels. Through people. Soldiers who survived the campaign carried the story. Not in mission logs. In bar corners. Transit hubs. Fringe outposts. They described a world where weather killed as fast as weapons. Where people with no rank held lions at bay. Where household tools became instruments of war. The word human evolved. Not just a species. A trait. Don't go full human, they'd mutter when someone acted recklessly. That one's got human guts, after watching someone hold position under fire. It became a badge of defiance. Not openly praised. But deeply respected. The veterans didn't exaggerate. They didn't need to. The facts were worse than fiction. Meanwhile, Earth's signals continued. Empire intelligence, though ordered to avoid the system, kept passive sensors active. They picked up science programs. Public debates. Emergency drills. Rebuilding efforts. No mourning. No submission. Earth wasn't waiting. It was preparing. Every city rebuilt had bunkers beneath. Every generation won in the history, not as a tragedy, but as a lesson. Defense had become culture. Other species noticed. Not just rebels. Not just colonies. Even minor observer states within the Empire began to change. More local defense funding. Civilian training. Less dependence on centralized command. Not revolution. Something quieter. Expectation. In one sector, a mining colony refused to send tribute. For the first time in 70 years. When interrogated, they cited Earth's stand. We won't give up what we built. Not without a fight. The Empire deployed troops. Control was re-established in 2 days. But it took weeks to fix the political damage. Loyalty was cracking. Not from weapons. From memory. Then one day, a scout vessel picked up a new signal. A satellite. Leaving Earth's orbit. Not a beacon. Not a weapon. Just a deep space probe. Slow. Simple. A message. Translated into dozens of languages. Not a threat. A record. It told the story of Earth's resistance. Not from a military perspective. From a civilian one. Names. Places. Mistakes. Victories. It didn't hide its losses. It listed them, one by one. With cause. And consequence. Not for vengeance. For documentation. The probe didn't seek contact. It wasn't aimed at the Empire. It moved away. Into unclaimed space. As if to say, this is who we are. If you find this, understand us before you try again. Empire Command reviewed the probe. Some demanded it be intercepted. Others insisted it posed no threat. Xanthal, now retired, sent one final note to the Council. They're not coming for us. But others will come for them. He wasn't wrong. Decades passed. Earth became a point of origin. For quiet visitors. Not spies. Not envoys. Just individuals. Curious. Drawn to something rare. Perspective. They didn't always land. Some watched from orbit. Some listened from afar. But word spread. System to system. Of a death world. With no empire. Of a people. Who made war. Cost more than it was worth. Not by strength. But by stubbornness. In a galaxy ruled by control. That kind of resistance was contagious. No monuments were built for Earth in imperial space. But in places where control slipped. Where whispers turned to voices. A phrase began to appear. Not as graffiti. Not as propaganda. Just 6 words. If Earth could stand, so can we.